5 ways to handle people who hurt you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever laid in bed at night replaying a conversation, a betrayal, a moment, wishing you had said more, done more, or maybe wishing it never happened at all? Pain caused by others cuts deep, especially when it comes from someone you trusted, someone you gave pieces of your soul to. It's not just a moment, it's a scar. But here's the truth. You cannot control what people do to you, but you can always control how you rise from it. Today, I want to share with you 5 powerful ways to handle people who hurt you, not with bitterness, not with vengeance, but with strength, grace, and growth. 1. Don't react, reflect. When someone hurts you, your first instinct might be to fight back, clap back, or shut down. But power lives in the pause. Take a breath, step back, ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about them? Because most people who hurt others are bleeding themselves. Let their actions be a mirror of their pain, not a definition of your worth. Responding from reflection instead of reaction puts you back in the driver's seat. 2. Set boundaries without apology. You are not a doormat. You are not obligated to keep toxic people in your life just because you once shared love, time, or history. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors with locks. You decide who gets the key. Speak your truth with clarity, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Saying no more isn't cruel, it's kind to yourself. 3. Don't seek closure, create it. You may never get the apology. They may never own what they did. That's not justice, that's reality. Waiting for someone else to heal you is giving them power they didn't deserve in the first place. You do not need their remorse to move on. You need your own permission. Write your own ending to the chapter, then turn the page. 4. Transform pain into purpose. What if the hurt you experienced could become the fuel for your highest growth? I'm not saying what they did was okay, but I am saying you have the power to rise because of it. Channel the pain, use it, build from it. Some of the most powerful versions of ourselves are born from the ashes of our lowest moments. Let the hurt be your teacher, not your anchor. 5. Forgive, but not for them. Now hear me on this one. Forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay. Forgiveness is saying, I will no longer carry this weight in my heart. You forgive not to erase the past, but to free your future. It's not for them, it's for you, because you deserve peace, you deserve joy, and you deserve to heal. Let me leave you with this. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. Handle those who hurt you not with hate, but with power, with elegance, with fire in your soul and peace in your heart. And never forget, you are stronger than the pain. When someone hurts you, especially someone close, the instinctive response is emotional. Anger surges, the mind races, you feel betrayed, humiliated, perhaps even broken. In that heated moment, the temptation to react quickly is overwhelming. Maybe it's a sharp text, a confrontational call, or silent treatment. But what if, instead of reacting from that raw place, you paused and reflected? That pause is not weakness, it's wisdom, because the space between what happens to you and how you respond, that's where your power lies. Too often, we let other people's behavior dictate our emotional state. When they lash out, we lash back. When they lie, we call them out. When they ghost us, we obsess over closure. But in doing so, we give them power over our peace. And I want to remind you, your peace is sacred. Not everyone deserves access to it. Not everyone earns the right to disturb it. Imagine this. Someone insults you, disrespects you, betrays you. You feel the sting. It's real, but now instead of immediately reacting, you breathe. You say nothing, not because you don't feel deeply, but because you are choosing to respond wisely. You sit with that emotion and you ask yourself a few hard questions. What is this person really projecting onto me? Is their pain speaking louder than their logic? Am I about to react out of my ego or respond from my truth? That moment of reflection doesn't erase what happened. It just reframes how you deal with it, and that changes everything. We've been conditioned to believe that silence in the face of hurt is weakness, that not clapping back means you've lost. But let me tell you, some of the strongest people in the world are the ones who choose stillness over chaos, who walk away not because they're afraid, but because they know the cost of losing their peace is too high. Because when you reflect instead of react, you start to see patterns. You start to recognize that some people hurt others because they're hurting. That pain they never healed from becomes a weapon, and they swing it at whoever's closest. And if you react, you're not just stepping into their chaos. You're giving them a front row seat to your peace. Reflecting means taking your power back. It means recognizing that not every battle is yours to fight. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not out of spite, but out of clarity. You see the situation for what it is, not what your emotions magnify it to be. It's like standing at the shore during a storm. You can scream at the waves, try to fight the tide, or you can stand firm, grounded, and let the storm pass. That's reflection. It doesn't mean you don't feel the storm. It means you don't let it drown you, and here's something beautiful that happens when you pause. Your self-worth speaks louder. You remember who you are. You remember that someone's inability to love you properly has nothing to do with your worthiness of love. You remember that being misunderstood doesn't make you less valuable. You step out of the victim mindset and into the space of ownership. Ownership of your healing, ownership of your peace. Reflecting also allows you to ask yourself, what do I want to do with this pain? Because pain can either be a weapon or a teacher. You can use it to hurt back, or you can use it to grow. And the people who grow, they're the ones who learn to pause, to reflect, to choose better, not bitter. In your reflection, you may come to realize that some people don't deserve your energy. That responding to them is like feeding a fire that only burns you in the end. So you choose to conserve your energy, to protect your spirit. You choose peace, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You start to see the difference between reacting for validation and responding with intention. One comes from fear, the other from strength. One tries to control the outside world, the other transforms your inner one. And maybe, just maybe, that person who hurt you was sent not to break you, but to awaken you, to teach you something about yourself, your strength, your values, your boundaries, your resilience. But you only get the lesson if you pause long enough to receive it. So, the next time someone hurts you and you feel that fire building, I invite you to do the bravest thing of all. Wait. Don't text. Don't lash out. Don't run. Just sit, breathe, reflect. And when you do speak or act, let it be from a place of clarity, not chaos. That is where your healing begins. That is where your power returns. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially when it involves people we care about, family, friends, partners, coworkers. There's a fear that by saying no, by stepping back, or by drawing a clear line, we'll be seen as cold, selfish, or unkind. But here's what's true. Protecting your peace is not a betrayal to others. It's an act of deep love for yourself. When someone hurts you, disrespects you, or repeatedly crosses the line, it is not your job to tolerate it for the sake of keeping the peace. Peace that costs you your dignity, your emotional safety, or your mental health isn't peace at all. It's quiet chaos. It's the slow erosion of your self-worth. Setting boundaries isn't about punishing the other person. It's not about revenge. It's not about building walls. It's about understanding where you end and where someone else begins. It's about deciding what you will and won't allow into your space, into your energy, into your life. Too many of us were taught that love means sacrifice, that love means endurance, that to walk away from a toxic dynamic is to abandon, to fail. But love is not supposed to break you. It's not supposed to leave you questioning your value or your sanity. And when it does, the bravest, most loving thing you can do, for you and for them, is to say, "This is not okay with me." There is power in claiming your emotional space, in saying, "I will not allow you to speak to me that way," in deciding, "I cannot continue this relationship as it is," in walking away when someone refuses to honor the boundaries you've clearly communicated. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain over and over again. You don't even need their agreement. You need your clarity. And here's the thing. People who benefit from you having no boundaries will always see your limits as a problem. They'll call you too sensitive, difficult, or dramatic. They'll try to twist the narrative and make you feel guilty. That's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for how someone responds to your boundary. You are only responsible for setting it. Some people won't understand, and that's okay. They don't have to, because this is not about them. This is about you reclaiming your power. This is about you saying, "I matter. My needs matter. My mental and emotional health matters." You see, boundaries are not rejections. They are redirections. They teach people how to treat you. They show the world what you will and won't tolerate. And more importantly, they show you what you are willing to allow into your inner world. The truth is, boundaries are an act of self-respect. They are you choosing yourself even when it's hard, even when it's painful, even when it means letting go of people who once meant everything to you. Because love without respect is manipulation, and connection without boundaries is chaos. Sometimes the people who hurt you won't even realize they're doing it. Maybe because that behavior is normal to them. Maybe because they've never been held accountable. Maybe because no one's ever said, "That's not okay." But it is not your job to stay silent just to keep the peace. It is not your job to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You can love someone deeply and still say, "This doesn't work for me." You can forgive someone and still remove them from your life. You can care for someone and still choose yourself. And let's be honest, setting boundaries doesn't always mean cutting people off. Sometimes it just means redefining the relationship, spending less time, shifting the dynamic, choosing how and when you engage. You don't need to burn bridges, but you also don't have to keep walking across one that's constantly falling apart. You deserve relationships that feel safe, that feel mutual, that feel healthy. Relationships where love and respect live together. And if someone cannot meet you there, let them go with grace. But do not hold the door open for disrespect. The hardest part about setting boundaries is that it often comes with loss, the loss of comfort, the loss of old dynamics, sometimes even the loss of people, but the space that opens up afterward, that space is where healing lies. That space is where your self-worth begins to breathe again. So if someone has hurt you repeatedly, deeply, carelessly, take a moment to ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe again? What behavior will I no longer accept? What kind of love do I want to create in my life? Then draw your line, not in anger, not in fear, but in truth. And when you do, stand by it with courage, with kindness, with unwavering self-respect. Because at the end of the day, you are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not mean for refusing to be mistreated. You are not wrong for protecting your heart. You are wise, you are worthy, and you are finally remembering that you matter. One of the most painful experiences in life is not just being hurt. It's being left without closure. The unanswered questions, the silence, the loose ends that never got tied up. We are taught to seek resolution, to wait for the apology, to yearn for an explanation that somehow makes the hurt make sense. But sometimes the truth is brutally simple. The closure we need isn't coming. The person who hurt you may never say they're sorry. They may never admit what they did. They may not even see the damage they caused. And in those moments, you have a choice to make. You can wait endlessly, replaying the pain like a record that never stops spinning. Or you can choose to create your own closure. Creating your own closure is one of the hardest but most powerful things you will ever do. It's not a moment of giving up. It's a moment of waking up. Waking up to the fact that your healing can't be held hostage by someone else's lack of accountability. Waking up to the realization that you do not need someone else's words to validate your pain. You felt it. You lived it. That's enough. When you stop waiting for someone to give you the closure you deserve, you begin to take back your narrative. You begin to reclaim the pen and write your own ending. Because the truth is, waiting for closure often means staying emotionally tied to the very thing that broke you. And as long as you're waiting for them to make it right, you're stuck in a story that keeps you small, keeps you wounded, keeps you in a place where healing cannot fully begin. Closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your understanding, from your decision to no longer need their validation in order to move forward. It's about accepting that what happened, happened. It wasn't fair, it wasn't okay, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your story. Letting go of the need for closure means sitting with the uncomfortable truth that some chapters end without explanation. Some people leave without reason. Some betrayals never get unpacked, and that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their limitations. And still, it hurts, of course it does. You wanted answers. You wanted justice. You wanted to hear them say, "I see you. I understand now. I was wrong." But healing doesn't always come with justice. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the middle of a sleepless night, when you finally whisper to yourself, "I can't carry this anymore." Creating your own closure is not a one-time event, it's a process. It's the daily decision to stop rereading the same painful paragraph of your past. It's the commitment to write something new, even if the ending of the last chapter still aches. It's the strength to say, "This hurts, but I won't let it control me anymore." Sometimes closure comes in the form of a letter you'll never send. A conversation you have with yourself, not them. A long walk where you cry and release everything that's been building up. Sometimes it looks like therapy. Sometimes it looks like silence. But every time, it looks like you choosing your own healing over waiting for theirs. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need closure from them, because what you really needed all along was clarity from yourself. Clarity that you were mistreated, clarity that you deserve better, clarity that you didn't imagine it, that you're not crazy, that your feelings are valid. You begin to understand that closure is not about understanding why they did what they did. It's about deciding that what they did is no longer going to define how you show up in your life. It's about letting go of the belief that justice must be served before you can move on, because justice doesn't always come. But peace can. Peace comes when you stop trying to rewrite the past and start creating a future that feels good to live in. And when you give yourself that closure, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing answers. You stop needing validation. You stop asking, "Why me?" And you start saying, "Even so, I rise." That's where the healing begins, not in the apology, but in the release. The freedom that comes from creating your own closure is not something anyone can give you. It's something you give to yourself. It's the moment you take your power back. The moment you stop bleeding for someone who never brought you a bandage. The moment you say, "You don't have to make this right. I'm going to be okay anyway." So no, you may never get the closure you thought you needed. You may never get the moment where they look you in the eye and finally understand. But that's okay, because now you understand, and that is enough. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in words or apologies. Sometimes it comes wrapped in silence, strength, and self-love. And when it does, you'll feel the shift. Not because they changed, but because you did. You stopped waiting. You started healing. And that is real freedom. Forgiveness is one of those words that can feel heavier than the hurt itself. It carries the weight of misconception, as if extending forgiveness somehow diminishes the reality of the pain you endured, or worse, excuses the offense. But the truth is more liberating. Forgiveness is not about condoning what happened or erasing the scars left behind. It's not even about the person who hurt you. It's about offering yourself a lifeline out of the prison of bitterness and resentment. When you forgive, you unclench your heart. You release the grudge you've been nursing, and in doing so, you reclaim the power that hurt tried to steal from you. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with rocks, each one symbolic of an offense, a betrayal, a harsh word that cut deep. Every day you haul that weight behind you, your shoulders ache. You move slower. You lose sight of the beauty around you because you're focused on the burden you can't put down. Forgiveness is choosing to empty that pack, stone by stone. You're not throwing the offense away or pretending it never happened. You're simply saying, "I will no longer let this define me or weigh me down." That shift in perspective is revolutionary. It is the moment you stop dragging your past pain into your present and start stepping lighter into your future. When you forgive, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. That person who hurt you might never acknowledge the damage they caused, and they may not even understand the depth of your wounds. Waiting for their apology or validation is like waiting for a ship in a desert. It won't come, and you remain stranded. But when you forgive, you hoist your own sail. You navigate towards self-love, self-respect, and ultimately self-peace. You refuse to let your emotional well-being hinge on someone else's capacity for remorse. Forgiveness also reshapes your relationship with your own story. Without it, you risk becoming the victim, replaying the offense on an endless loop, speaking about it as though it's the defining chapter of your life. But when you forgive for yourself, you reframe the narrative. You become the author who says, "Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt, but it did not break me." You write in new lines of resilience and courage. You draw upon the lessons learned, the clarity about who you are, what you deserve, and how strong you truly can be. It's important to remember that forgiveness is not linear. There will be days when the sting surfaces again, like an echo from a canyon you thought you'd exited. You might feel the familiar rise of anger or the ache of betrayal all over again. That's not failure, it's part of the process. Each time you encounter that echo and choose forgiveness again, you reinforce your commitment to peace. You remind yourself that true forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's a muscle you strengthen each day by choosing grace over grievance. In forgiving, you free up the space in your heart to cultivate joy, love, and compassion. Harboring resentment is like planting weeds in your garden and wondering why no flowers bloom. When you pull out those weeds, you create room for seeds of positivity to take root. You might be surprised how forgiveness can open you to deeper connections, even to yourself. You begin to approach your own imperfections with kindness because you understand the weight of being forgiven. You realize that self-forgiveness is just as vital. Letting go of shame, guilt, and the harsh judgments you sometimes direct inward. And let's be honest, sometimes forgiving for yourself means setting new standards for others. You might forgive someone's hurtful behavior, yet decide that you no longer want them in your life in the same way. That's okay. Forgiveness and boundary setting can coexist. You can choose to forgive without choosing to re-enter a relationship that compromises your well-being. You can release the resentment while also releasing the expectation that what was once broken can, or should, be made whole again. That discernment is another layer of the freedom you create for yourself. When you step into this realm of self-directed forgiveness, you start to live with a new lightness. You wake up feeling less reactive, less burdened by the ghosts of past slights. You find that your energy is no longer siphoned off by the need to prove yourself right or to justify your pain. Instead, you're free to pour that energy into your dreams, your passions, your relationships that lift you up. You become an invitation for peace in a world that often glamorizes conflict. Your very presence testifies that liberation is possible, and that true healing comes not from external validation, but from the deep, radical act of forgiving yourself the right to move on. So forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Forgive not to rewrite history, but to rewrite your future. Forgive not as a favor to others, but as an act of self-mercy. In that decision, you step out of the shadow of hurt and into the clarity of your own worth. You stand tall, unencumbered by the weight of bitterness, and you move forward with a heart open to all the goodness that awaits you.